In this tutorial, we're going to go over how to add color and shading to your digital artwork using a Chromebook. How to digitally color your drawing. So first I'm going to download my photo, and then I'm going to open it in Photopea. And then I need to get rid of the background and resize it. So let me find it, let me open it. Just going to magic wand the background. So I find the magic wand hidden under the object selection tool, and I'm going to hit the backspace key, and you can see there's little dots that weren't erased properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another layer and pull that layer underneath my turnaround figures, and I'm going to fill that layer with black. And what that will do was it'll show me where the little dots are that I couldn't see before. So I can just take my eraser and I can erase all the little areas where there are that didn't erase properly when I was editing the picture on my phone. So I'm just clicking at the top of the eraser, holding the shift key, clicking at the bottom. It'll just erase in a straight line. Once all that stuff is done, I can delete that bottom black layer. I don't need it anymore. And now I can focus on coloring. So I'm going to just go delete the black background layer. And then, as soon as I'm done doing that, I'm going to select color range. Oh, let me resize it first. So the DPI should be 300. The height should be 4 inches. Let me change from pixels to inches. And when I hit the chain, it'll change the width as well. So now I'm going to do select color range. And I'm picking with my cursor the white. And I'm going to make sure that none of the background or the black lines are selected, just the white. And I'm going to do edit cut. Well, actually, I'm noticing that the black line doesn't come up close enough to the black, so I'm going to modify it by expanding it by 2 pixels. And now it really comes right up into the black area. It covers the line. So now I'm going to do edit cut, edit paste, and then I'm going to pull that layer that just has the white in it down below the black outline. So now I'll have one layer that's just the black outline and another layer that's just the white fill underneath it. And I'm going to do all my coloring in the layer that's underneath the lines. So first I've decided I'm going to paint the pants. So I'm going to take my magic wand and I'm going to select all the pants. So there's my magic wand. I'm just going to click on all the pants and all the figures. And then I'm going to go to the foreground color and I'm going to change it to blue. And once I've gotten the color that I like, I'm going to do edit fill. And now pick the foreground color and it'll fill in. Now at this point, I'm going to switch to my brush tool. And I need my brush to be quite a bit bigger than the 15 pixels that it gives me. So I'm going to adjust my brush tool, and I also need the brush to be softer and fuzzier. So I'm picking a slightly darker color for the shadows. So I can just click on the foreground color and pick a darker value of the same color. And now I'm going to adjust my brush. It's going to be a lot fatter, and I'm going to take away all the hardness. It's going to be a very soft edge brush because I'm adding shadows. So remember, the pants are still selected. So the nice thing about that is because only that area is selected, I cannot accidentally color outside the lines. So that enables me to very quickly lay the shadows in there without worrying too much about going outside the lines. and it's gonna give the pants a very soft feel. So let me just finish coloring up this, and you can see it's a pretty quick process because I don't have to be that careful about coloring outside the lines. I can also zoom in with the magnifying glass to really get the detail, and I can adjust the size of the brush so that I can get some more detailed shadowing in. You can see it really gives the pants a nice three-dimensional look. I'm just going to skip real quick past this section, since you already get the idea of what I'm doing. But when I put the lines back in, I noticed that they've got kind of a white edge. So I need to go to that top layer. I need to do select color range. I need to select the black lines. I might need to zoom in to do this. So I'm going to just X out of this, and then I'm going to zoom in until I get just the black line. See, this isn't working. I'm going to X out of this, and then I'm going to really zoom in. And then when I'm real up close, I'm going to do, again, select color range. And I'm going to click on that. It really is like more of a gray. So I'm going to use my cursor. I'm clicking on that, and then I'm going to adjust the fuzziness until I see just the black lines there. So again, I'm in the top layer with the black lines. I'm going to adjust it till I really clearly see those black lines. Then I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to do Edit Fill Black so that I get a really good, sharp outline. I also might need to modify it a little. Let's see how it looks. There's a little bit of an edge to it, so I'm going to do select and modify. And I'm going to expand it by a couple of pixels and see if that looks better. It looks like it's a little bit too fat now. So I'll do contract by 1 pixel. So now it's 1 pixel bigger than it originally was. And now I can do edit fill again. You can also modify it by smoothing the edge. But anyway, I'm selecting that color range, and I'm doing edit fill black, and I'm giving my image a cleaner outline. So this takes a little tiny bit of modification to get it the way I want it to look. So again, all your coloring is on the bottom layer, all your lines are in the top layer, and you've got to tweak both in order to get them to really look the way you want. So there's different features. You can smooth your lines out, and then again, you're going to want to fill them with black until you get the refined edge that you want and the look that you want. Taking a few minutes to do this at the beginning will save you from being disappointed in the end when you finally finish creating your animation. So now I have my nice clean black lines on the first layer. I've got my color on the second layer. My pants are done. And now at this point, I'm going to start playing around with his skin color. So I'm going to grab my magic wand, and I'm going to select all the heads, all the necks, and all the arms in the bottom layer where the white is. And I'm going to start playing around with coloring those. So first I'm going to hide the top layer. I'm going to the bottom layer, and I'm going to just start selecting various areas with my magic wand. And then I'm going to play around with the skin color. So if you hold the shift key down, you can select more than one area at once. I noticed that I forgot to shade in the pants on one of the guys. So I'm just going to do that right now. And you can just use the eyedropper to pick up the color that you used before if there's something you forgot. So clicking that eyedropper hovering it over a color and clicking will change the foreground color to whatever color is underneath it, so I don't have to worry about replicating the colors on the pants. So once I'm done with that, I'm going to play around with this skin color. I'm just finishing up real quick, shading that last pair of pants. And you see I didn't have to sit around figuring out what colors to use because I could just use the eyedropper to pick up the colors from the previous ones I colored. Anyway, so now I'm zooming out and I'm going to hide that top layer again. And I'm going to start selecting the arms, necks, and faces on the various figures so that I can color in the skin color. I use the magic wand. I hold the shift key so I can select multiple areas at once. Now on one of the figures it accidentally selects the shirt. That's fine. I'll fix that later. And remember, you're in the layer below the outline. If you accidentally select something you don't want to select, you just do Control Z to go back a step. And now that I've selected everything that I need, I'm going to go to the foreground color and I'm going to select a skin color. And just click on the foreground color and go through the rainbow till you find the color and the lightness or darkness that you desire. And then you're going to just start out with one flat color like before. You do Edit Fill. And then you're going to keep it selected and you're going to find a darker value for that color for the shadows. And you're going to adjust the size and hardness of your brush so that the brush is very fuzzy on the edge and creates shadows. And you might want to zoom in with your magnifying glass and start adding shadows. You don't have to worry about going outside the lines because the areas are already selected for you. And you can start adding in shadows. I'm just going to do this real quick. I'm going to speed past this part because you see what I'm doing. And now we're getting to the fact that one of the figures, the shirt, accidentally got selected as well. So I'm going to just grab my eraser and I'm going to start erasing that area. As soon as that's done, I'm going to just continue shading. And once I'm done shading, I'm going to try and go back to my foreground color and I'm going to pick up a mid-tone. I feel like it's a little too harsh, the shadow, and I need something in between the skin color and the shadow color to kind of give it a smoother transition. That's the other reason why you want to take out all the hardness of your brush and make sure it's got a fuzzy edge to it. The other thing you can do is change the width of your brush if you think the shadow is a little too fat. But anyway, I'm going through and adding more shadows. And then when I'm done adding those shadows, which I'll just quickly do here. All right, so now I'm deciding that I need shadows under the hair. So I'm just changing the width of my brush, and you can use that little hand to scroll or pan across. So when I'm done shading, which I will just quickly do here, I unhide the black lines on the top layer to look at my work. And the first thing I notice is that the shadows seem a little bit harsh and that I need a mid-tone. So I'm going to go to my foreground color and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Click on my foreground color and find a slightly lighter version of it that's still darker than the original. So it's almost like a lighter shadow. And I'm just going to go along the edge of every shadow and just sort of remove the harshness of it by very carefully just adding a mid-tone. And you'll see that the entire person starts to look a little bit more dimensional. You may need to adjust the size of your brush. At this point, my lines are not selected anymore, so I could go outside the lines. So I'm shading just a little bit more carefully. But you see how adding that transitional tone, I don't have to smudge the color or blend it or do anything else because I'm already using a brush that has a soft edge. And I'm just going over the edges of the shadows, and it's giving it a softer, more volumetric feel. So I'm just going through every single face and doing that. And I'll just do that real quickly. I'm going to speed up the film now again. And this time I deliberately am showing the black lines, and I'm going to show you the last person at the end does not have any shading on them, and that's so that you can kind of see a contrast between the shading and no shading. So again, I'm just adding a little bit of contrast, a little bit of subtle shading in there, and I'll leave that last guy not shaded in so you can see the difference in the look between a flat color and a shaded in color. So if I were to zoom out again, you could really see the difference. The one on the end is flat. The other ones have some subtle shading to them. So now I've decided to play around with creating the hair. And this is something that a lot of students have trouble with, is creating hair with texture. So I'm going to go and select a color for my hair. I'm going to just magic wand one of the figures. I'm not doing hair in all of them, but I just want to show you the process. So I'm going to select an overall color for the hair and do edit fill. So I've decided he's going to be a blonde. So I click on the color and I do edit fill. Foreground color. Okay. And now I'm going to pick a slightly darker value. And at this point, make sure that your hair, that your brush has a fuzzy edge to it. But I want you to draw in the direction of the actual hair, how it would grow up and down. Don't just scribble scrabble. And you're just trying to give it a little bit of variety. So you're going to slide up and down that color range, adding darker and lighter values on top of each other to give the hair a feeling of dimension, a feeling that the light's hitting it, that the top might be a little lighter, that the undersides of the hairs might be a little darker. You see I'm layering up the colors and giving a little bit of highlights on the end. The other thing I want to caution you about is don't make the lines too thin. At some point, even though your brush has a fuzzy edge, if you make the lines too thin, it will read as a hard edge. The other thing is to sort of overlap and layer the colors on top of each other. So at this point, I made it too small, and you can see I ended up with hair that just didn't look right. The texture wasn't correct for the rest of the hair. So I'm trying to keep all my coloring soft, and when I made it too thin, it just looked wrong. So you see how those lines just don't look right. So I'm actually going to thicken my brush strokes a little bit just to give it the look that I want. Give it that soft edge. And I actually ended up doing Control-Z a bunch of times to get rid of those because I thought that the edge just looked too hard. So even though it's a soft edge brush, when it's small, it's still going to read as a hard edge. And again, I'm playing around with the lighter colors over darker colors. If you draw with a lighter color after you've drawn with the darker color, and you leave a little bit of the darker color showing, it'll read more like a shadow. So I'm just playing around with the hair, but notice the direction of my brush strokes is always up and down and slightly curved as if it's hair sitting on a person's head. And I'm trying to get not just one color, not just two colors, but I'm sliding my slider up and down, so I'm getting a whole family of colors and values from light to dark. So let's see. I'm going to deselect it. I'm going to put the black lines out, and you can see how the hair color looks as part of the entire cartoon, how it gives it a little feeling of volume and depth. So that's basically all I have right now as far as digital painting. The nice thing is, because you're selecting various areas and coloring in, you can do this with the trackpad on your Chromebook or a mouse. You don't need a fancy stylus because you're selecting and deselecting various areas. You can't go outside the lines. So I'm just going to save this as a Photoshop file, and I'll keep working on it later. But now you have the idea of what to do as far as digital painting. If you look at the figure on the right, which has no shading, and you look at the other figures which have shading, you can see how the shading creates a sense of volume and depth in your figure.